Each of our candidates have little yellow forms in front of them, and they can hold up the rebuttal form. So if a candidate has a comment makes a statement, and they want to rebut that, they'll have a minute to rebut that. Candy will be our timekeeper. She will keep us on track. Each question will get 2 minutes per question per candidate, and then 1 minute for the rebuttal. The 12th question is a chance for a candidate to ask the other candidate a question themselves. So whatever you guys would like to ask each other, that will be the 12th question. Prior to our starting of the meeting, each of the gentlemen shows a number, and whoever got closest determined who would go first. Jonathan won that, so Jonathan chose to be the first one to answer the question. So that's how we'll start the debate, and then we'll alternate every other question. The other candidate will get a chance to go first. Okay, so on this note, are we ready? Okay. The gentleman will be sharing the mic. Okay.
Each got their own.
Each got their own.
Oh, they each have their own. Okay. So, first off, Jonathan, why don't you start for us? Please take 2 minutes to introduce yourself and state your qualifications for this position.
Great. My name is John Knapp. First of all, I want to thank you for hosting this event today and inviting us out to hear what we have to say. I grew up in Josephine County. This is my home. I graduated from Hidden Valley High School, and I don't like what I see today. After graduation, I served 4 years in the United States Air Force, teaching skills like discipline, morality, value. Then I did 15 years with the Salvation Army, where I was a finance officer in the southern half of the state of California. Finance is one of the biggest issues we have in the Josephine County Sheriff's Office. We need somebody who has the financial experience to accept your dollars, stretch them as far as we can, and give you a good accounting on how we use them. I then did almost 20 years in the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office, the 4th largest sheriff's office in the nation. I know the difference between working a small town city beat and working the rural areas of a large county. I worked patrol, I supervised patrol. I worked property and evidence, I supervised property and evidence. I was a hostage negotiator on the SWAT team. I was FBI trained in leadership, values, and discipline. As your sheriff, I will take all of my skills, talents, and qualifications and expand them into what you need in the leadership, and that's what you're electing. You're electing the CEO of the Sheriff's Office. You're electing a manager, and I have the qualifications and experience to manage the Sheriff's Office. So come November 8th, I would like for you to hire me as your employee, as your sheriff. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. I probably don't even need this, to be honest with you, but you turned me way down. Sorry, turned me up. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you very much for coming here and taking the time out of your day to listen to Mr. Knapp and I state our positions. My name is Dave Daniel. I am your Josephine County Sheriff. I have been for basically the last 8 years, elected in 2015, January 1st or 3rd. Is when I was sworn in. It's actually been an honor. I think we can all remember maybe what 2012 looked like, and in law enforcement in Josephine County, and where we were then. I ran for sheriff then because I wanted to fix a problem, and the problems keep coming with marijuana and crime rates, and here we go with more inflation and all these things that drive certain levels of crime. I think we've done a pretty good job with the Sheriff's Office. The team that I have working for you is working very hard. And I think that's important to build that group, that teamwork. I was a Grants Pass City police officer for a number of years, 3 years. Then I went to the Oregon State Police for 3 years, and then came back to the city of Grants Pass and worked there as a detective and officer, and then ran for sheriff. I have a bachelor's degree from Oregon State University and a master's degree in management from Southern Oregon University. I'm just going to kind of end with this. It is an absolute honor to be your sheriff. I take it very seriously. I believe strongly in our Constitution, both that of Oregon and the U.S. And I'm hoping for another 4 years to continue this fight. Number one is funding, and that certainly is a big problem, but I think we can address that. Thank you very much for coming today.
Jonathan, the first question. Name 2 areas that worked well and 2 areas that needed improvement over these past 4 years within the Sheriff's Department.
One of the things that I think is working well is the marijuana task force, special funds set aside by the state of Oregon, distributed to the counties in Southern Oregon so that we can tackle the marijuana issue. As you've seen, the Sheriff's Office has been busting marijuana grows, and that is lessening the burden on our citizens as far as the home invasions and those type of things. So that's one of the good things. Unfortunately, I can only really come up with one, and that's funded by the state. What I'm disappointed in is our patrol response. 4 years ago, I said if elected, we would have 24/7 patrol. We're still not there. 8 years ago, when the sheriff ran the first time, he focused on patrol. We're still not there. We have got to find a way to get 24/7 patrol and answer the call when you call us. It's still not happening. So really, I have the 2. I have marijuana is working well, but it's other people's money. And patrol is not happening, and we have to do that. We also have to include our citizens in volunteer programs. And there's a lot of opportunity for citizens to help the Sheriff's Office, work our non-government contracts, and find places where other people can help and assist the Sheriff's Office in the mission we do so that the burden doesn't fall 100% on the taxpayers. And that's where my financial experience and my leading in a volunteer organization are going to come in handy. We're going to find the volunteers, get the job done. We're going to take your dollars, stretch your dollars, and not waste any money in an area where it shouldn't be spent. Thank you.
I have to agree on the first point. The JMET, Josephine Marijuana Enforcement Team, has done a fantastic job. And yes, they are funded with state monies that I had to fight up in Salem to get. That was several times I had to go up there and testify and get my hindquarters kicked by the bureaucrats up there and whatnot. But I will throw a shout out to Representative Morgan. Nice work. Good on you. I'm almost waiting for an applause there. So that's one thing that's going really well, and it continues to go real well. Second would be, to a certain extent, I also disagree, the increase in patrol. Do you remember when I came on, there were like 2 deputies, 5 days a week, 8 hours a day. We're at right now 18.5. Last year we were at 24. So I think that's working. That's working really well. 1 minute. One of my main concerns right now is our schools. That is I'm really concerned about that. We have 1 school resource deputy. I put on the ballot years ago, or requested to put on the ballot years ago from the commissioners, and they did, to try and get a school marshal program going. It was shot down by like 74% or 75%, at like 3 cents per thousand was what I asked for. Because I saw the need then, I still see the need now. I negotiated with the school district to help pay for a school resource deputy. 1's not enough. We have 13 schools and 3 for school district. And the elephant in the room is our funding decline. The school SRS monies, O&C monies, and the fact that the contingency monies are now kind of running out. But I had to show what we could do, we being our team, with citizens' help. And I think we're doing that, and I hope you take note. Thank you.
Thank you. So one of our members did have a question specifically regarding the Sheriff's Office has not had 24/7 patrols in 10 years. What is your actual plan for increasing those patrols? Dave, this question would be yours first.
Well, a lot of it falls back to funding. I mean, you can't, I mean, it's more expensive nowadays to hire, train, And retain is a major situation for us. I just lost 5 deputies in the last 4.5 months who have said, I got families to feed, you know? So, and all that equates to person hours, man hours, woman hours. And so we need to try and find a funding stream. You're gonna see something on the ballot in November. We vetted a lot of different ideas of what to do. And property taxes, people really, ew, gosh. You know, and somebody said, how about a gas tax? And I'm like, huh? A gas tax with our prices right now? It's almost laughable. So you're gonna see a seasonal sales tax on the ballot in November. And everyone pays. Please become informed if you don't know what that's all encompassed. And I don't have time today to get into it, but you know, we vetted it. Everybody pays. It's seasonal, 6 months out of the year, and there's a few fine details in there that are really appealing. So please take a look at that. You know, short of that, we just keep going. You just keep trying. You know, you can't. There is no quit. You don't. As sheriff, we don't get that opportunity. I've been fighting for 8 years and trying to right this ship, and we're gaining ground. We as a community need to keep moving in that direction, and we can. We can. We just have to make a choice as to what kind of stabilized funding the organization needs, and that is truly what we need. Is something stabilized. We got cracks in our foundation, and we gotta seal those up and make this permanent. Thanks.
My opponent says we're gaining ground. We still don't have 24/7 patrol. And while I'll agree that we can have patrol if we have the money, I disagree with how the money is being spent and where the money's coming from. You're told that we're going to see a sales tax on the ballot in November. That sales tax, I believe, is deceptive and misleading, but it says it's going to generate $18 million. And $9 million of that is funneled to go to the county. If that were true, what a blessing that would be. $9 million would solve our 24-hour, 7-day-a-week patrol problem. The problem is that once the county, because remember, it's being divided by population, the city gets theirs for their police department. Cave Junction gets theirs for their police department, which means the sheriff's office is going to get it for patrol. And then the county, not the sheriff's office, the county gets the county's portion of 52%. And the county is going to slice away little bits of that $9 million. The county is going to fund the DA's office out of that $9 million. The county is going to fund juvenile justice out of that $9 million. Although 70% of the DA and the county's caseloads are city cases and should be funded by the city. The county will be left, if I've done my math right, and believe me, I'm the math guy, the sheriff's office will be left with $3 million. $3 million will get us a long ways to 24/7, but it won't get us there. But we have to be honest with the voters. If we're going to ask them for money, we need to tell them what it's going to cost. Previous administration has had 8 years to tell you, what will a patrol bureau cost? What will a K-9 bureau cost? We hear no numbers. We have no idea what it's going to cost to fund patrol because we're not being told. Under my administration, I will tell you what every single element of the sheriff's office is going to cost you.
Too tight. There you go. There you go. Just a reminder, Candy said to be reminded that you do have rebuttals. If something comes up, don't forget you can use your yellow cards. You got 4 of them. Okay, Jonathan, you'll be first on this question. Rural areas depend on the sheriff for law enforcement. What is your opinion of the response times and visibility of the sheriff's office in the county?
Well, if I'm giving a report card, I give it a D. We are responding, but we're not responding enough. We're making an attempt, but we're not making a good enough attempt. We still have people calling the sheriff's office, and they're being told, sorry, we don't have anybody to come out. I had a young lady call me, and I'll be speaking with her on Friday at a meet and greet in Cave Junction. She called the sheriff's office while somebody was breaking into her house, and she was told, sorry, there's nothing we can do for you. That response is not acceptable. We have got to respond to every 911 call in one way or another. And some of the ways that I plan to do that is by incorporating volunteers and our non-government organizations. If we can farm out some of the duties that our sheriffs are doing that are not responsible to a sworn officer. I'm not trying to take a union job away. I'm not trying to send a citizen into a hot environment, as my opponent has claimed I said. Once the scene is cold, we can send a volunteer out there to collect evidence, to help write a report, to do those kinds of things. That frees up the deputies to go handle calls for service. The deputies in Cave Junction should stay in Cave Junction. When they arrest somebody, we should be sending a posse, an inmate car, out to Cave Junction to transport that inmate back, so that the deputy doesn't have to drive all the way into town to book his inmate and waste that time. We have to take the deputy's time and expand what they can do. And we do that by more volunteers, NGOs, and then streamlining the budget so that we can afford 24/7 patrol.
One administrative moment here. Everyone, we are recording this for your benefit and for members that can't be here. If you haven't yet silenced your phones, please silence your phones or turn them off so that we don't pick up any additional noises on our recording. Thank you.
If your home's getting broken into, I gotta call hogwash on that, because we do come, and we will come. That is one of the highest priority calls we have. And so I just cannot believe that took place. I'd love to find out about that. You know, you could use volunteers for a certain number of things. But are you going to send a volunteer out to run a paddy wagon to take a guy into custody away from the peace officer and then take them to jail? Does that work? Is there liability there? Sure, there are certain things that volunteers can do, and actually do, because I have a volunteer division. But liability-wise, be real careful of what that looks like. How much could that potentially cost your county? My opinion of the rural patrols is they're doing the best they can. Literally 3, maybe 4 deputies for a shift, for a 10-hour shift. How many calls do you think Josephine County Sheriff's Office gets every day? I mean, it's tough. It takes time. We have to prioritize. We have to make those split-second decisions on what calls we can go to and what calls we can't. Am I going to send a deputy to a Wolf Creek, call where somebody is just loitering, when all of a sudden something pops up in Cave Junction where there's an assault? And I don't centralize those deputies. Those are decisions that law enforcement have to make, especially law enforcement here. Now, I'd like to be in this situation that Grants Pass has, where they go to every call for service. Logistically, I'm telling you, honestly, truthfully, that it can't be done. Okay, it can't ultimately be done. And we work hard, very hard. Our deputies are getting hammered, so please understand that.
And Jonathan would like to use one of his rebuttal cards. 1 minute.
When you call the sheriff's office, for whatever you call them for, that is the most important thing in your life at that time. And who is it for us to decide that it's not important? If you've picked up the phone and you dial 911, you feel that it's an emergency. And we need to respond in a manner that's appropriate for that. Now again, I told you I have a forum on Friday night in Cave Junction. The gal that told me about what she heard, she's posted it on Facebook. It's all over the place. You can find, I copied and pasted it into my Facebook page. Come out and ask her the questions. She'll tell you word for word what she heard from the sheriff's office. I'm tired of it can't be done, sheriff. I suggest funding raises. It can't be done. I suggest programs. It can't be done. I suggest volunteer program. It can't be done. It's a time for a get her done, sheriff.
All right, Dave, this will be your question. Since funding and staffing are issues, what are your thoughts regarding reserve programs for supplemental coverage or bolstering services via outsourcing contracting with the private sector?
Well, currently there's not any money to be given to the private sector. If I had the money, I would use it internally for ours. Reserve programs are fantastic. They are great. I would love to have more reserves. But you will understand this, please, this day and age, if you're qualified to be a reserve, why would you with the lack of numbers of applicants and people that want to be in law enforcement, why would you just go get a law enforcement job? It's very, very difficult to hire. We have a reserve program, and I would love to fill up that reserve program. We're not getting the applications, unfortunately, and we do advertise that, you know, and we want people to come assist us. It's not that easy. But they are great programs. They do help with, you know, certain things, parades and two-person units and going out and dealing with calls and things that are very active and potentially volatile, but it takes some serious training to get a reserve up and running. So we don't let them currently go out by themselves for patrol type issues. But I do support that, and that's really goes to the volunteer aspect, because they're obviously unpaid, and you know, that's the citizen involvement that we try to shoot for. You know, we do really the best we can, and we try. And I am a get her done sheriff. I mean, if you can't say that I haven't gotten her done in the last 5 years, from 2 deputies or 3 deputies up to what we have now and have had historically, or the marijuana grows, or focusing in on the schools the best we can. You know, it's easy to say, it's hard to do. I know that, because I think we're doing it. Thank you.
It's easy to send someone out to deal with the marijuana grows when, under your administration, they had 7 years to bloom and prosper with no enforcement whatsoever. I came from the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office. 2,000 volunteers and 200 reserve officers. We found a way to make it work. And under my administration, I have a plan to make it work here. I work for the premier private security company in Southern Oregon. I see their former owners over here, and I don't mind saying, Concierge Security opened my eyes to the needs of law enforcement in the rural areas of Josephine County. There are great men and women that work there that want a job in law enforcement, and they're teaching them the skills and abilities that they need. If nothing else, to be a volunteer in a reserve. I meet here the last Wednesday of every month with a retired officers group. I can't tell you how many of those officers have told me, and I believe them, they're officers, that they've gone into the sheriff's office and they've said, I want to volunteer with your professional standards, or I want to volunteer on your river patrol. And they have been told, there's no room in our office for you. Any volunteer that comes to me, I will find a place to use them based on their talents and skills. Now, yes, they're going to have to be trained, and yes, they're going to have to go through a background to make sure that their motives are pure and that their intent is to best serve the citizens of Josephine County. But I believe that we have a labor force in Josephine County that wants to meet your needs. It's untapped, and we're not giving them the opportunities. So as sheriff, I will swing wide the doors to those people that want to serve their community and find a way, and hopefully we hire all of them as deputies. Thank you.
Okay, any rebuttals to that? All right, next question. Fiscal responsibility is a sign of good leadership. Jonathan, you'll be the first one on this. How has the Sheriff's Department managed to that current budget, and how will you manage over the next 4 years?
Again, are we giving out report cards? All county departments, all county department agencies have to write a budget and submit it to the budget committee, which is then submitted to the county commissioners. Our sheriff does that every year. This year, they spent their entire budget and $4 million of reserves because, as the sheriff stated earlier, we wanted to show you what we could do if we had more money. fiscal irresponsibility. If the sales tax doesn't pass in November, which I don't believe it will, we've been told that the deputies in that area are all going to run out of money on June 30th. Had they not spent the $4 million of reserves, we would have reserves where we could have kept the deputies on the street. We have got to quit throwing money away like it's our kids' college fund and we've disowned them. We have to pinch every penny and spend it where it needs to be spent. We've got programs that need to be reduced or eliminated. Part of my administration is a town hall meeting and a citizens advisory council. I'm going to ask you on a regular basis, not just at election time, what is it you want from the sheriff's office? And then we will brainstorm the ideas on how we can provide those services. And if we're providing a service that nobody wants, we'll eliminate the service. If everybody wants patrol, then we're going to find a way to give everybody patrol. But we have to get a handle on our finances. And this current sales tax doesn't solve that problem. Spending the reserves doesn't solve that problem. Buying new shiny toys does not solve that problem.
My opponent's talking about contingency funds. Contingency funds basically carryover funds, things that came from the corrections levy that was passed back in 17. So some of those funds from the foundation of the jail that now were shored up were able to be shifted over into a patrol and operations division. So you take over the course of 5 years in the hiring and the moving and trying to grow and build a little bit. What if I hire 2 deputies and I make those 2 deputies with very little support last 10 or 15 years? Great, I got 2 deputies. And what have I shown you? I'd like to sell you a car, one of 2 cars. Okay, here's one of 2 cars. They're the same year, same make, same model. And this car is right here. And I'm going to let you test drive it. You can see what that car does, how it acts, how it responds, how responsible it is, how professional it is, how, to coin a phrase. But the other car, it's going to be $2,000 less. But you can't see that car. You don't know if that car runs. You don't know if it needs work. You don't know anything about it. So how can I sell you a car if I can't show you what we've done and what we can do? And that's just an analogy of why it was important for the sheriff's office to come back and get to a level to where people go, darn, they're doing a good job. Wait a minute, I'm seeing a deputy over here. I know they can do it. You know, I'll support that. I'll actually vote for something to support that because I haven't seen that in a long time, maybe 15 years. They're seeing it now, and they've seen it. And that's where the money went. And I do the budgets every year. And we are as fiscally responsible as I believe we can be. And there's oversight in that process as well. I don't get to make those decisions.
We have rebuttal?
Is this a rebuttal?
It's a rebuttal. 1 minute.
1 moment.
6 years ago, the sheriff and the commissioner stood in front of us and asked us to approve a jail levy to strictly fund the jail. And there was a flyer that they handed out, and some of you will remember getting it, called Just the Facts. And that said that if the jail levy passed, or if the jail levy failed, we were going to eliminate patrol, because we had to take that money and run the jail. But if the jail levy passes, we'll have patrol, we'll have this, we'll have that. Okay, the jail levy passed. You renewed it, although they're laying off people in the jail. But they told you if the jail levy passed, we'd have patrol and the other administrative functions. Now here it is 6 years down the road, and they're telling you, sorry, we have no money to run the sheriff's office. Well, what happened to the money we had 6 years ago to run the sheriff's office? Are our county commissioners not giving us any of the 58 cents? We need to be asking those questions.
You can ask,
1 minute.
you can ask the questions, you can get answered. And I just heard something that we're laying off people in the jail. I have no idea where that came from. The only issue in the jail right now is keeping staffing in the jail, finding the qualified people to hire. And we're running the jail as professionally as we can with the numbers that we have, because COVID has crushed us. It really has. That's been the main issue, the quarantine times and having to keep them behind in a certain section to where we can't get the numbers up until 14 days or 10 days, or now it's 5. So our jail is running optimally, phenomenally. And I hate to see somebody think that that's not the case. Those men and women have a hard job, and they do very professional work. So I ask that you obviously support that portion, that division of our office as well. And we are not laying off people. We need people.
Dave, you'll be the first one on this question.
Okay.
What will your organization look like if the 3% seasonal tax passes? What will it look like if it fails?
Great question. I put those numbers together. I didn't bring them with me, but I have them pretty well memorized. You're looking at 24/7 patrols if it passes. You're looking at 40, I believe it's 41 patrol deputies operations-wise. That'll open up a detectives division again. It looks really good. I mean, it looks like a fully functioning law enforcement agency that has gleaned the support of its citizenry, and that's really what we're shooting for. And I always hesitate to go into the alternative, because to a certain extent it's kind of I don't like to campaign on fear, but I will campaign on reality. So I'm telling you, you're looking, if it passes, at a fully functioning law enforcement organization. If it doesn't, it's not. It's not. It's my contract deputies that are out doing their contract work, and it's literally one lieutenant is what it looks like right now. This year was a scale down. SRS monies are not there, and so it's not a pretty picture. There always is an opportunity to put something else on the ballot at the next one in May. But I'm also fearful that I'm going to lose deputies that are going to go, uh-oh, I got to find another job. I got to go somewhere. So those are things I'm battling right now. And I told you that we have lost people as a direct result. So again, become very informed. See what it's going to cost you individually. If you live in the city, the sales tax, the seasonal sales tax gets $1 off of your $1.97 levy. It's almost a wash for that. But that's it. Thank you. It's reality.
If the sales tax passes, it's a win for the citizens in the city of Grants Pass, because they get $1 off of their property tax. It's not a win for the citizens who live in the county who get $3 million. And that's if you believe that the sales tax will raise $18 million. Now you understand that $18 million is 3% of 100, or 3%, yeah, 18 million is 3% of $100,000 per month for 6 months. So those business owners in here, do the businesses in Josephine County generate $100 million in sales every month? If you don't, then 18 is a falsehood. If you only generate $50,000 in sales, then you're going to get half of that. You're going to get $1.5 million by the time the sheriff gets his slice of the cut. It is not going to be enough to run the sheriff's office. We've got to come up with something else. If it fails, you have what he said. You have the contract deputies, you have me. If I have to get up and put on the uniform and get in the car and go write traffic tickets and respond to calls for service and collect the evidence, then that's what I'm going to do, because that's my job. We approved a jail levy, and I just wanted to circle back on that. The Daily Courier printed the article with the interview from Dave and the finance office, who said they were eliminating 5 positions in the jail. So I just want to clarify, I'm not making up numbers. Either the Daily Courier printed false information, or the finance office provided false information to the Daily Courier. Thank you.
Okay, Sean, you'll be first on this one. Significant cartel activity is present in Josephine County. How will your organization manage calls that require deputies to arrive at a home with a large number of armed cartel members present?
Those are always going to be tough on an agency as small as ours. That's why we have the task force. That's why we have JMET. That's why we work with Oregon State Police and Medfords and all of the other counties. Because we don't send a deputy into a call by him or herself where they're outnumbered. Domestic violence calls are the most dangerous call that any law enforcement officer will ever handle. And that's two people fighting out in the kitchen. And we would never send a deputy into that call by himself or by herself. There's always going to be 2 or 3 or more. Ultimately, you want to outnumber the bad guys. When you don't know how many bad guys there are, it's hard to outnumber them. But that's where it comes down to intel. We have got to have people that are taking pictures, taking names, making all of the information, and I would hope that our task force are doing that. So that when we issue a warrant to go to a cartel grow, we know exactly how many people are there. Right now, thank God, by the grace of God, we haven't had any incidents. But we will. The time will come. As we start to shut down their grows, they're going to get more desperate. And so we need to be prepared. We need to have the information, the intel. We need to have the deputies that are trained and that have the skills, and it's all about teamwork.
So we're doing that. Every week we go to these cartel type grows, cartel situations where the cartels are living. And you know, a lot of things that Jonathan said are absolutely true. It's really standard operating procedure. We don't go in with just one person. We get intel. We go in and try to find out how many people are there. What's the setup of the property? Is there high ground, low ground? All of these things. And really that's law enforcement. And I don't know if I can really expand or expound on what he said. There are tactics, there are procedures, we have policies surrounding it, and that's how we operate as safely as we can. That's my worst day, is if one of our team members gets hurt or killed. That's my worst day. I wake up at night thinking that. And every man and woman on my agency, in this agency, that work with Josephine County Sheriff's Office, knows that's how much I care. We give them equipment, we give them the training, and we send them to do a darn tough job. They deserve our support, and I think everybody in this room does support. And thank you for that, because at the end of the day, that's what drives us, is you, the people, that we actually work for. I have never seen a job that have 86,000 bosses, which is what you all are to me. And that's why we're here, to make decisions, decide who you want in that office. Have they done a good enough job? Are they doing a good enough job right now? And are they going to do a good enough job in the future? And I can tell you right now, I am. And it's going to get better. Thank you.
Dave, how will this department manage the increase in human trafficking and undocumented aliens that often accompany the increase in cartel activity?
Great question. I wish the legislature would let us document the undocumented, find who the undocumented aliens are. We can't even ask, and that drives me crazy. I don't understand it, but that's the reality of it. We can't even ask by law if someone is a United States citizen or a Mexican national or whatnot. We work closely with a company called Unite. Some call it Unite. And when we go into these grows, really, to be honest with you, I think that much of the working force and the workers, they're really more victims than they are, bad actors. When I did the Q-Bar X operation, I had 250 law enforcement officers from around the West Coast and some from the nation fly in and help us with that very thing. Every worker, 200 of them, well, the ones that didn't flee, were interviewed. and offered assistance and offered help. And that's how we operate. You know, I've purchased water and bought sandwiches for some of these guys that are left stranded on the street. At the end of the day, they're human beings, and they need to be treated that way. Yes, some have been human trafficked here. Some haven't. Some have. Some of them don't even know what state they're in. They just come up and they work in squalor conditions of just terrible, paid little, eating food that's basically in part rotten at times, work long hours, get shot, put in a ditch, and we've had those cases. And we do everything we can on the humanitarian side to try and help them. And then on the legal side, really stick it to the guy or gal that's the bad actor in charge of the operation. Thank you.
Criminals are criminals. If I have a chop shop in my backyard and I hire 5 of my best friends to help me chop up Harley Davidsons and sell off the parts, and the sheriff's office comes to my house and they raid it, how many of us are going to jail? Every one of us. Okay, I get it that people are human traffic, but a lot of trimmigrants, whatever you want to call them, are here by choice. And if they are arrested, detained in criminal activity, they need to be identified like any other person in the state of Oregon. And if that means we use ICE or his program or any other program to identify a criminal, not arrest them because they're in the state and they're not legal, we're identifying a criminal. And if ICE finds that they have a warrant, a detainer, any of those things, then we let ICE have them. If not, we charge them with the crime that they're participating in. This free wash of 250 people, because one of them might have been transported or half of them might have been transported, doesn't do our community any good. They leave the grow, they go to another grow, and they keep working. And they keep stealing, and they keep robbing, and they keep doing all of the other things they're doing. Yeah, they live in squalor. Yes, they don't have the food they want. So how do they get what they want? They go to the next door neighbor's house and they take it. We have to stop all criminal activity. We used to have an ICE contract. We canceled the ICE contract under Dave's administration because he was afraid of a potential lawsuit. I was an Immigrations and Customs Enforcement officer trained by the Department of Homeland Security. I know that there are tools in our toolbox that we can get criminals, not illegal immigrants, criminals out of Josephine County and out of Oregon.
Dave's going to do a 1-minute rebuttal.
Jonathan just cost the county about $10 million. Because, maybe more actually, because each one of those detained by ICE can sue. And if they don't sue, somebody will back them because you just broke the law. You can't have ICE. ICE cannot come into my building for the purpose of investigating whether the person is a legit legal citizen or not. It's against the law. And I think that's important. That liability is to raise. This liability is always out there. It's ever looming. You know, you can get sued once a month. Most times it doesn't go through or anything. But it's always out there. And just know, I think it's very, very important when you're making these decisions about who's in office. Let's make sure that they know exactly what they're talking about in the law. Thank you.
Okay, question number 9. Remember, we have a total of 12 questions. Question number 9. This is a bit of a long one. Just warning you. John, you will go first on this. At both a federal and state level, laws are coming in place to abolish gun rights. How will you respond if you are instructed to assist with the confiscation of legally owned weapons by the Oregon State Police, keeping in mind this office receives funding from the state and has mutual aid agreements between the Sheriff's Office and the OSP?
We have a document called the Constitution. The Constitution has a Second Amendment. The Second Amendment protects your right to bear arms, to possess arms, to have them in your possession. You buy those guns through a process. Hopefully, you buy your guns through a process that's legal. We have a state charter, a home rule charter, that says no law enforcement resources will be used to infringe your Second Amendment rights. We have an ordinance adopted by the commissioners a couple of years ago that says no law enforcement resources will be used to violate your Second Amendment rights. What's a resource? The sheriff, me. I'm your resource. The patrol car is a resource. The deputy, the evidence bag, the fuel in the car are resources. We have laws and ordinances in place that say no resources shall be used. Now, I'm the only candidate that's not endorsed by the Democrat Party. In a meeting last week, my challenger said that if 114 passes, that he will support it, that he will enforce it. Folks, 114 will go to court, it will be found to be unconstitutional, and I will not enforce it. Thank you.
I can make this probably pretty short, and I don't think I'm going to need the whole 2 minutes for it. I'm not coming after your guns. No one can make me come after your guns. The state police, the governor, I don't care. I too believe strongly in the Constitution and your right to bear arms. This one coming up with IP 17, where they're trying to make the sheriff's offices do background investigations just so you can buy a gun. And then if you want to get, and once you go buy the gun, then they have to do it again. It's absolutely ridiculous. It's not going to make our community any safer by doing that. The Oregon State Sheriff's Association is against it. The Oregon Association of Chiefs of Police is against it. And it's just another little piece of the pie into the infringement on your constitutional right. And it definitely hinders your liberty if they ever were to do that. They came up with, I forget the name of the bill, but you have to have a certain place to store your guns and you have to have them locked up and all whatnot. Hogwash. That will never be investigated, looked into. It's your home. It's your dwelling. The sheriff's office has no business in how you store a gun, and we will not investigate that. And that was just another piece of the pie. And I hate this slippery slope of what we're going down on right now, because it's not looking good. So I implore you to stand up and vote with me against all of these ridiculous gun laws coming up. Thank you.
Dave, you'll be first. As an elected office, the sheriff is the highest law enforcement entity in the county. Could you be specific and tell us how you perform this job as a constitutional sheriff?
Wow, that's a good question. A very fair question. I am a constitutional sheriff. You don't think you have to be a member of an association to be something with that association per se. But you swore an oath to support the Constitution of the United States and that of Oregon. I've done that twice now, for 8 years. And I take it very, very seriously. Every time you make contact with an individual in the street, and I do often, I'm obviously in uniform for a reason today, because I'm probably going to be out there later. But when it comes down to constitutional rights, it's the Fourth Amendment, the First Amendment, you have to understand those, and we do, and we respect those. There's a line that law enforcement can cross at times. There's a line that you can't cross almost all the time. And that really it's important because it's very litigious as well. The liability is huge. You make a bad arrest. You use a level of force that is outside the scope. You chase a car, and that car goes into another lane and crashes and kills somebody. That can be on you. And so I think constitutionally, it's very important to me. I know it's important to all of my deputies, men or women, and of this office. Heck, protecting your Constitution and your liberties, that's my job. That's what I'm supposed to do, and that's what we'll continue. That's what we'll continue to do. Thank you.
All kinds of interesting stuff. I love your thing about if you chase a car and they hurt somebody, that falls back on us, because Josephine County has more pursuits than any other law enforcement agency in the state of Oregon. Under my administration, that will stop. Somebody is going to get hurt. Somebody is going to get killed. We do not need to chase somebody because they have an outstanding warrant for failure to appear, or because they ran a stoplight. That's not worth your brother, sister, mother, father, son, or daughter's life. As far as being a member of the Constitutional Sheriffs and Peace Officers Association, that means something to me. In May, we voted whether or not we were going to allow code enforcement to violate your Fourth Amendment rights and go onto your property. I was against it. My opponent was in favor of it. The First Amendment protects your freedom of speech. One of those freedoms is political speech. Your right to say what you want to say, whether somebody agrees or not. My opponent contacted Grants Pass City Police, and he did it many times during the debate process, and complained about my political signs up during the primary. Political speech, protected by the First Amendment. But he had his friends send me a letter saying, take your signs down in the city limits. They're not allowed. This is a guy who says he supports the Constitution and he supports your right, while at the same time violating mine. I am your constitutional sheriff, and I will fight for your rights like I fight for mine.
Question 11, John, this will be yours. What do you expect to be the greatest challenges coming to Josephine County over the next 4 years? How will you respond?
Well, I think finance is going to be the greatest challenge, and I have a lot of ideas. We have big money and we have small money. Big money are your tax dollars. As soon as I take office, the second Monday in January, we will start to put a plan, not during an election year. We will start to put a plan together for how we can fund the critical forces in the sheriff's office. We have to do that. And I'm going to ask you to repeat the question because there's something else I want to hit on.
Sure. What do you expect to be the greatest challenges coming to Josephine County over the next 4 years, and how will you respond?
Okay, so something flew in and out real quick as far as the greatest challenges go. Staffing, of course, is related to funding. Getting quality staff and keeping quality staff when the money goes away. So we have to get our budget in sync. One of the things I've said is our budget is messed up, the way the county does the sheriff's budget. We have our jail canteen fund is in with the airport. Animal control is in with the animal shelter. The adult jail is in with juvenile corrections. The sheriff's admin is in with the DA. We have got to create from the beginning a sheriff's fund which has nothing in it but sheriff's office money. So that then I can go out and I can solicit funds for the sheriff's office and know that 100% of those funds are going to be used in the sheriff's office. And that a portion of them isn't going to slide over here and slide over there. Take, for example, your jail levy. We renewed it. It can be renewed one more time. But what I don't like about it is it's 97 cents per thousand, but the county gets to decide how much the sheriff gets and how much juvenile justice gets because they're in the same fund. I want to know exactly, when I'm writing my budget, how much money I as sheriff am going to have, so that I can tell you exactly how much it's going to cost to run the sheriff's office, and you can decide whether or not you want to fund it.
Thank you. That's
By the way, juvenile gets 8 cents of that 93 cents. So that's already that's how they break that down. You know, funding, of course, is one of the challenges coming up. And I think we could probably kick that dead horse all the way down the street, and we're still going to have a dead horse. So I'm going to move on just a little bit to back to the last question, kind of the gun regulations. I think Josephine County, by and large, is obviously a rural county. And we have a very conservative core here. And that's a real concern. That's a challenge I think we're going to face as a community. So again, let's keep an eye certainly on that. I think you're also going to have, and are having now, recruitment and retention issues. You know, I had a hiring process for corrections deputy just last week, and I canceled that process just for a little bit because I received 3 people that were interested in applying and actually go through the testing. 3, and it was open for almost a month. That's what we're looking at. So that's going to be a real challenge as we go further down the road, and law enforcement in general is looked upon negatively by maybe this younger generation. It's difficult to get those people, and then obviously it's difficult to keep them when times like this come around. So those things are just right on the top of my head: the funding, the gun legislation, and recruitment and retention. I think is really 3 big challenges that we're all going to have. Thank you.
Dave, this will be your first, you'll be first on this question. What question would you like to ask your opponent?
Jonathan and I joked earlier, I was going to ask him, hey, what's your favorite color? But, I mean, really. But funding is obviously kind of an elephant in the room right now. And so, I'm supporting something. I'm trying to, make something happen, something that could potentially be very positive. If it doesn't happen, then things could be very, very negative. So I would just ask Jonathan, if you had to choose a number 1 source of revenue that you think could help fund law enforcement in Josephine County, what would be your idea for one good funding stream that would really work?
Great question. It is funny because as I'm writing my question down over here, it's almost the same exact question. And I'll answer it. Dave's been sheriff for 8 years. He proposed an animal control levy, a jail levy, and a sales tax. In 8 years, he has not proposed any long-term funding other than taxes during election years. I spoke at the fundraising symposium or whatever they had, and I told you we have large taxes and small taxes. We are going to have to do a tax. But I want to meet with you and find out which one. Do we want a district tax for the people that live outside of the city or paying for it? And if so, we have to know exactly what does patrol cost before we can ask you for the money. This 3%, 18 million, we haven't given you the numbers yet. But I have a lot of small dollar ideas. We need to start charging our inmates, when they're convicted, the pay to stay. What did it cost you to put them up in our jail? We need to start billing back the City of Grants Pass. ORS says that the City of Grants Pass has to pay for it. I only got 1 minute to answer that question.
Actually, you know what?
It was-
Because took a
it was
little time
2.
to get to. We're gonna go a little longer for that.
Okay.
Get 1 more minute.
Okay, so I guess I'm gonna have to go really fast. We've got to do other things. SOS had run for the law. We got to bring it back. We got to take cars, impound cars for people driving DUI, driving suspended, driving without insurance. Impound their car for 30 days and charge them the storage fees and an admin fee to get their car back. We have to do a justice court so that the dollars for traffic tickets written in Josephine County stay in Josephine County. We have to go to all of our businesses, and I believe there's a bunch of them from talking to them that would all donate a service or gift or in kind and do the world's largest fundraiser auction meal fest to fund law enforcement that you've ever seen. I have ideas. They may be small ideas, but you know what? Small ideas add up. Or you can sit down and wait till it's an election year and throw a tax in front of the people and do nothing else the rest of your career.
Well, only because it took them a little while to get the question out, so we wanted to have 2 minutes for response. Okay, Jonathan, what
Okay,
question do you
so
have
my
for
question
Dave?
is-
And then start the timer after he.
Yeah, my question is, except for tax, What proposal for funding the sheriff's office have you come up with in 8 years?
Yeah, we vetted probably 11 different concepts, and some were taxes, some weren't. None of them really came up with enough money that would really create a stable funding stream. You know, looking at some of these pay to stay, can't do it. It's not lawful. Bill grants pass for services they're already paying for to a certain extent, especially corrections and civil. Impound cars, if you saw the kind of cars that we actually look at and impound, I mean, seriously? That's gonna cost me, and you can't be a portion to charge the impound companies, the tow companies actually do that. A justice court, we've looked at that numerous times and also found that it's not a stable funding stream. So there's a lot of ideas out there and concepts, and it's a great question, Jonathan, but it's a hard question. You got to do hard things when you're leading and you're a leader. You got to make decisions. And yes, yeah, if I have to fall on the sword and look at some form of a tax that's stable for our citizens so they're comfortable and our schools are taken care of and our children are safe and our elderly can walk around and not get carjacked, I'm going to do that. And yes, I'm going to come back if I have to another time, and maybe it's another tax. But I haven't heard anything from my opponent that says this is going to work. Other than little things like citizens can help, and maybe we can do some of that stuff. And sure, that's all good. That's all good. But the picture is huge. I'm in it. I live it 7 days a week for the last 8 years. So that's it. If I got to fall on the sword, that's what I'm going to do, and that's what I think we need to do, and I'll walk off that plank.
So those are all the questions that we had.
Yes.
Well, 2 ministers.
Okay, are you going to allow school marshals and volunteers carry firearms?
That's what I was.
Okay. Which one are you asking, or both? Both. Okay. 1 minute each. Which one?
Terry.
I don't care.
Okay.
Doesn't matter.
I cannot answer that question because I don't know what the school board policy is on marshals. Deputies obviously are armed 24/7 and can take theirs anywhere they want to. But if the marshals are volunteered and not paid and not trained, you know, so without knowing the marshal program and speaking with the school board, that I can't answer that.
Okay. Dave?
Volunteers, keep stepping on that. Volunteers, no. I would not authorize them to be armed. If we had a school marshal program, which we don't, yes, they would be carrying firearms. They're not much good to an active shooting type situation if they couldn't. Thank you.
Okay. Go ahead.
I got a little distracted from a comment that Sheriff Candle mentioned, but I'm sure we can just look back on the video later. Just something you mentioned about conservatives in the neighborhoods. But so I've been trying to run the numbers because both of you guys have mentioned some of these things on the budgets and stuff. So we have a business major and a CFO, or chief financial officer here. So it sounds like the sheriff's department has been running at about approximately 1/3 of its needed budget. How much longer can we go on before we fall apart?
Okay.
I get it. We just go, you know, we just go. It's a great question. It's more of a comment than it is a question, to be honest with you. And that's why we're keeping fighting, and we're going to keep trying to somehow raise some funds to where we can get some stability.
And thank you. And I wanted to follow up because I do have a bachelor's in public safety administration, a master's in business management, and a master's in disaster preparedness. So thank you for opening the education door there. Right now, the fiscal cliff, as they're calling it, is June 30th. I believe that if you elect me as your sheriff and I get into office in January, I'll find a way so that we're not laying everybody off in the month of May.
All right. Next question. Melissa.
From a law enforcement perspective, what is the most effective way to support law
So really, it's funds. That's how you support your law enforcement. You get behind a funding, I want to use the word scheme, but I don't mean it in a negative way. You get behind a funding plan that will fund your sheriff's office and you back it 110%. I just haven't seen that funding plan yet that I like. It's in the best interest of the sheriff's office. The sales tax is a funding plan, but it's not in the best interest of the sheriff's office. And then you volunteer.
I have to disagree. I think it is in the best interest of the sheriff's office because what the crossroads we're coming to. What our sheriff's office asks of the citizens is, number one, primarily, be the eyes and the ears for us. We'll do the heavy lifting. That's what we're paid to do. But the information from all the people out there that see what's going on on the day-to-day basis is really important. So that's what we ask. And again, if you have the ability to volunteer, for sure. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead.
I was recently reading about ONC and how they were subjected to a court to try to get some more action from that. And it seems as though these 13 counties actually own the property, and then the feds came in and said that they would do the right thing and, you know, take out what you needed as far and give you the funds. And why is it that somebody will not support that?
Yeah, that's the Lynn County lawsuit that was kind of based out of Lynn County. But yes, 13 counties were involved in that. It was for, I think, approximately $1.1 billion is what we sued for. We won. The 13 counties won that. They appealed, and then the decision was overturned. We tried to, we just requested it go to the U.S. Supreme Court for some type of a ruling, and they denied to hear it. So now it's dead in the water.
And whose fault is that? I mean,
U.S. Supreme
ours.
Court didn't want to hear it again, or didn't hear it at all, not again. So.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
This question is more specifically for Jonathan. You said the previous sheriff's department you were with was the fourth largest in the country. And I'm wondering what that financial situation was like in that office comparatively to ours, which has lack of funding.
The Maricopa County Sheriff's Office had hundreds of millions of dollars of budget. We had 800 deputies, 1,200 detention officers, 2,000 posse members. But that's a whole different community. Maricopa County is Phoenix, Arizona. So there's money in Phoenix, Arizona. You can't even begin to compare the two. But what you get out of that is you have a deputy, a sergeant, with a sheriff's office who worked patrol in the county, who worked the supervisory and the superior courts, who worked detectives, who did all of that stuff with the skills and talents that he gained as a manager and a leader in a very large department, bringing those talents, skills, and experiences to a much smaller department. So you gain from my experience. You don't gain the money from Maricopa County. You can't compare dollar for dollar. But what you get is you get all of the experience that I got from working for Maricopa County and Sheriff Joe Arpaio for almost 20 years.
Dave, did you want to address that at all?
No.
Okay. Do we have another question? Go ahead, Joseph.
I have a question. I've heard a lot of discussion about the Second Amendment protections and constitutional sheriffs. Currently, Oregon has a red flag law, and I actually wrote that ordinance that prohibits the use of any kind of resource from confiscating a weapon. Why is it that Josephine County Sheriff has the highest confiscation of weapons under the red flag law than any other sheriff's department in the state? And do we expect that to continue in violation of our county ordinance and what I just heard about constitutionality here? Because the red flag laws don't offer any kind of due process.
I don't know off the top of my head, Joseph, what the number is. Do you have that number off the top of your head?
Last I looked, it was 27.
Yeah, I don't know. Is that broken down by county and city?
That is Josephine County.
Okay, so Josephine County as a whole.
Correct.
Okay. I can only think of, that actually kind of really surprises me, because that law, I was very concerned about that law and the potential for abuse of just going in and somebody complaining about their ex-boyfriend and how he's crazy, he's got guns and we go in and take all his guns. I will tell you that most of the red flag laws, actions that I'm aware of with our county deputies has actually been requested by the deputies. And 9 times out of 10, it's due to mental health issues and concerns in that regard. I think we're a very small number of those, to be honest. I think you're looking at the city.
I just wanted to ask, Josephine just said that other county had lots of money, but you didn't say, so where does that money come from? Taxes of what? And I just always wonder too, like, so where does Medford get their money? Where do other counties get their money for this year?
So it's really taxes. Phoenix, Arizona has a 12% sales tax. Started smaller, got bigger. You heard the story. But that's where most counties get their sales tax. But you got to remember that up until 1980, when I was growing up here, we didn't have a property tax. We had all of our O&C funds, which paid for law enforcement. When those dried up, or actually in 1980, every county was required to vote in a property tax. We didn't need any money, so we said, let's be the lowest in the state. Somebody was at 59. We said, hey, let's be 58. We'll be lowest in the state. Problem is, the way that measure was written, it cannot be changed. It can't go away. It can't go up unless everybody in Oregon votes to change it. So we're locked at 58 cents. Then the ONC went away. Then the Secure Our Rural Schools went away. We're still stuck at 58 cents. So we need to increase our tax if we want to fund the sheriff's office.
Yeah, I don't disagree. Actually, it can go up to 58 cents incrementally. I mean, it's 3% per year is basically what it can go, which is, you know, basically almost nothing, but it can increase just a little bit. But yeah, it's because we had the money when ONC and SRS were here. They didn't forecast and think forward. And to answer your question, man, yeah, Jackson County, they're upwards of almost $2. Maybe, you know, city taxes maybe even more per thousand. So I can tell you that Jackson County is watching very closely this sales tax. Curry County will probably have this sales tax, seasonal sales tax concept on their ballot. And I think there's a lot of counties around the state that are going to take a look at this that are hurting. So, you know, we in Josephine County try to lead from the front, and we'll see what happens. It cannot be moved up above 3% without a vote of the people. That's written in.
Vivian.
The county board of commissioners get the 58 cents and they decide what to do with it. 58 cents per $1,000 of assessed valuation on every piece of property. Now it's their decision to decide how much the sheriff's office gets. And I think it would be prudent of all our citizens to impress upon our county commissioners that we want them to make our sheriff's department the priority of funding rather than all of their little pet projects that they have throughout the county. And fund the sheriff first, and then take what they've got left to fund the rest of their things. But fund what it takes to actually run it. That's my, what do you think, guys?
Do you have a question?
I like your attitude.
They both agree. There you go.
Yeah.
Do we have any other questions? Do we have any other questions? Julie?
Just a real quick technical question. When I was in law enforcement, the agency was able to take a lot of money, and this is for you, Dave, recover a lot of money from seizures. I haven't seen that happen here. Is it not lawful here, or a program that has not been developed, or is it like got a lot of money and a lot of property in that?
Yeah, thanks, Julie. That's a great question. And the answer is, we cannot, from the seizure, asset forfeiture, from the property or equipment, we cannot fund personnel. We can fund training, we can fund equipment. Because it really comes down to an ethical issue of, okay, wait a second, that's a $2 million property, let's go get that one. When it's just as big a blight on somebody that has $300,000 property. So it really comes to kind of an ethical issue. And that's state law that we can't use those monies. Does that answer your question? Yeah, thank you very much for asking. And by the way, we are in the process of seizures and asset forfeitures, and it takes a long time. It takes a long time to do that. And it's not always as easy and as cut and dry as you think. Now that Ford F-250 pickup truck and that Dodge Ram pickup truck and that backhoe and the Bobcat and trailers and all that, oh yeah, load them up, I'll take them, we'll take them. But it still doesn't amount to a whole lot. I'm just kind of hitting almost their pocketbook as well.
And you can't sell the pot, right?
No, and I get that question a lot, Vivian, so I'm really glad you asked it, because the pot... Why, you want to buy some, or what do you want? Anyway, I'll make this real quick. The pot, we don't know how it's grown, what pesticides are on it, herbicides are on it, whether it's healthy or terrible, or we know there's rate foggers and things like that out there, so we wouldn't even go down that road. Plus, I don't think it's legal for us to compete with the private market. And we would draw. Okay, thank you.
On that note, although we do like that creativity, that could be another club fundraiser, there you go. On that note, we're going to close out our debate. Thank you, gentlemen, for coming.
Thank you.